Of the countless entries in the Batman franchise, few feel as total as Batman the Animated Series. Through the relaunches, reboots, and endless Elseworlds takes on the character, it's somehow always easiest to point to Batman the Animated Series as the purest distillation of what makes Batman, well, Batman. But calling it a distillation is almost a disservice to the show, because Batman the Animated Series didn't just simply repurpose the best of Batman's assets. It frequently invented original elements and powerful new takes on characters that have since become synonymous with the greater Batman mythos. And of the many ways that it's done this, none are more significant than the villains. Here are 5 ways that Batman the Animated Series changed Batman's villains forever. Number 5, Mr. Freeze. If you think of Mr. Freeze and you don't think tragedy, well, you're either fundamentally lacking some kind of empathy, or you're stuck back in the 1950s when Mr. Freeze was still known as Mr. Zero. First introduced in 1959's Batman number 121, Mr. Zero was yet another casualty of vats of goo that turn you into a boring, evil mutant villain guy. Wayne Enterprises should really invest in, like, I don't know, lids for vats. Mr. Zero had a gun that fired ice, and he did all the boring bad guy stuff. The most interesting thing about the guy was that he was named Mr. Zero instead of Mr. 32, implying that he was an early adopter of Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. Man of science, that's cool, I guess. Not really. Okay, moving on. Batman 66 featured the character with multiple actors. They even bothered to give him a real name, Dr. Art Scheibel, confirming that the guy's just a, big old nerd. The eventual rebranding of Mr. Zero as Mr. Freeze didn't make the character interesting. It wasn't until Batman the Animated Series that Mr. Freeze became cool. You see what I did there? I did a bad joke. Wild! On September 7th, 1992, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini completely overhauled the character's origin with the now infamous episode, Heart of Ice. This version of Mr. Freeze is a GothCorp cryogenic scientist named Dr. Freeze, who is desperately tending to his ailing wife, Nora. Freeze has placed her in a cryogenic freeze to buy himself time to cure her terminal illness. But greedy GothCorp CEO Ferris Boyle deems this a misappropriation of funds and shuts the project down, which would effectively kill Nora. Freeze pulls a gun on Boyle, but he can't bear to pull the trigger. He's not a violent man. But in the scuffle, Boyle smashes Freeze into the cryogenics equipment in a way that permanently alters his body. Freeze now can only survive in extremely low temperatures. He builds his Mr. Freeze suit, and now the classic tale of his bittersweet mission of love and revenge begins. Batman learns Mr. Freeze's origin and feels a great empathy towards the guy. I mean, we all do. But Batman can't get through to the guy's heart of ice, like the title of the episode, eh? Bats is able to thwart Mr. Freeze's mission of murderous revenge with a spot of hot chicken soup, and Freeze is cordoned off to a frozen cell in Arkham Asylum to grieve for his lost wife Nora in cold solitude. The episode became an instant classic from the very first season even, and Mr. Freeze went on to being Mr. Zero to a Mr., well, much more popular A-list Batman villain. The comics adopted the same origin, and soon after we got Arnold Schwarzenegger's, performance in Batman and Robin. While of incredibly dubious quality, keep in mind how significant it is that a Fox Kid cartoon influenced a major motion picture. Critical bomb or not, this movie was a major factor in solidifying the non-cartoon watching public's awareness of Mr. Freeze and his origin. Since then, a direct-to-video movie, Batman Sub-Zero, played as a direct sequel to Heart of Ice, featuring Mr. Freeze's life in the Arctic with his adopted family and pet polar bears. But before you get it in your head that Mr. Freeze has become fully super sympathetic softy, he's been expanded out in the comics as well, becoming much more dangerous and much more violent. The first issue of Gotham Central has him freezing and shattering cops, murdering them in cold blood? Mr. Freeze has gone from being a goofy joke to a sympathetic anti-hero, a complex, dark, tragic character. And it's all thanks to a single episode of TV. Number 4, Clayface. Batman the Animated Series didn't just create and popularize new elements of characters, it also took raw materials that already existed and sculpted them into something usable, something iconic, something brown and mushy and hard to look at. I'm talking about Clayface, obviously. What did you think I was talking about? If you follow Clayface in the comics, you'll know that this is a messy character. In fact, there have been a whole wet wad of folks who've called themselves Clayface. There's Basil Carlo, Sandra Fuller, Preston Payne, Todd Russell, and that's not even half of them. There have been enough Clayfaces in the comics, 9 in total, that they eventually just looked around and decided that they could form their own goop-themed gang called the Mud Pack. That's real. That's a real thing in the comics, just out there. But in the animated series, Tim and Deanie were able to get their hands dirty in mashing that mush down to the necessary elements. The Clayface of the animated series, Matt Hagen, is actually named after the second comic book character to take on the Clayface name. But he shares his background of being a handsome actor with the original comics Clayface. Our animated Matt Hagen gets a new origin though, where his pretty face is hideously disfigured in a car accident, sending him desperately to pursue an experimental drug that allows him to regain his good looks. But an overdose turns him into the moist maniac we've all come to be grossed out by. Thematically, this works great. An actor who makes his livelihood from his face, taking on roles, becoming an ironic embodiment of this very pursuit, horrible and forced to take form and shape of other people. It's cool. And as we've covered before, this version of Matt Hagen's legacy is fired in the furnace in the new Batman Adventures episode, Growing Pains, where Robin befriends and develops feelings for a young amnesia girl, Annie, who later is revealed to be nothing more than a big chunk of Clayface that strayed a little bit too far from the body. She's subsequently reabsorbed, disappearing horrifically into nothingness. Kind of like how the animated series absorbed several different comic characters into a single entity so that they'd be easier for us to keep track of. Huh, neat. Once again, the recent Batman comics have looked back to the animated series for inspiration, making Carlo's current origin story that of a handsome actor who's disfigured in a car accident and abuses an industrial makeup known as Renew to reshape his face. Does that sound familiar? I mean, it should, because it's literally just the same story that we talked about. Weren't you paying attention? What's wrong with you? I do these whole videos and you just like tune out and do something else? You should have been paying attention. Come on. Number 3 and number 2, Harley Quinn and the Joker. As I'm sure I don't need to tell you, the queen of Hot Topic herself, Harley Quinn, did not exist before Batman the Animated Series. The character was created specifically for Tim and Deanie's friend Arlene Sorkin to voice, and little did any of them know that one day their children's cartoon character creation would lead to, this. I mean, it led to a lot of good things though. I mean, First introduced briefly as a henchman in the 7th episode of the series, Joker's Favor, Harley didn't come into her own until January of '93 in the episode The Laughing Fish. This episode adapted some of Joker's most iconic stories, but more importantly, it was the initial step to establishing the iconic character interplay we would see between the Joker and Harley for years to come. And while Harley's best known episode may actually be Mad Love from the new Batman Adventures, she had already busted her way into the comic books by way of the Batman Adventures in 1993. And when 1999 rolled around the same year as Mad Love, Harley Quinn was already popular enough to be receiving her own featured titles. Soon after, she was a series staple, appearing in everything down to the Batman games. And although she only somewhat recently made it into the live-action world with Margot Robbie's performance in Suicide Squad, there was even a time in the 90s where she was planned to appear in the unmade Batman and Robin sequel, Batman Triumphant, possibly to be played by Courtney Love, which is just really weird. It's just a weird, cool fact. And, of course, Harley Quinn wouldn't exist without Mark Hamill's incomparable performance as the Joker. Between the 14 episodes of Batman the Animated Series, 5 episodes of the new Batman Adventures, 3 episodes of Superman the Animated Series, 1 episode of Static Shock, 2 episodes of the live-action Birds of Prey, 6 episodes of Justice League, 2 episodes of Robot Chicken, 6 episodes of Justice League Action, 4 animated films, 12 video games, and a fucking roller coaster in Madrid. Mark Hamill has a total of 55 credits as the character. That's more than twice of the runner-up Cesar Romero from Batman 66. He's the best Joker, okay? It's just, I don't know how much there is to say, really. What else can I say about the Joker and Harley Quinn that you don't already know? They're just iconic. They're great. They're great and it's good. Let's move on. Number 1, Adam West. Okay, stick with me here. I know what you're thinking.
Adam West, he's not a villain. He was amazing. Also, he played Batman. He's not a Batman villain.
Well, no, Adam West was not a Batman villain, never in the traditional sense. But in the late 80s, in the post-Frank Miller hard-boiled rebranding of Batman as the grim protectorate of Gotham, in the era of Tim Burton's dark take on the character, it was just not cool to like Adam West's intentionally campy take on the character. For a spot of time, Batman 66 was something of an embarrassment to a fan base who was only willing to treat the character seriously. But in episode 32 of Batman the Animated Series, Beware the Grey Ghost, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini brought to the table an amazing take on Adam West, featuring none other than, Adam West. I guess that's not very surprising, but In this episode, Adam West portrays a washed-up actor named Simon Trent, whose glory days of playing TV vigilante the Grey Ghost are behind him. Is this starting to sound like a parallel? Yeah? In the episode, Batman ends up teaming up with Simon Trent, who dons his popular TV costume. The two are out to stop a villain known as the Mad Bomber, who looks suspiciously like Bruce Timm himself. Well, it turns out that the Grey Ghost was a tremendous inspiration for Bruce Wayne to become Batman, and that Batman has modeled his persona on his childhood hero. And at the end of all things, after the Mad Bomber is stopped with Simon Trent's help, the Grey Ghost is recognized as being an actual hero. A resurgence in popularity is prompted, and his show is released in crystal clear, high definition, standard definition VHS home video. His career is saved. If it isn't already abundantly obvious, this is a direct metatextual take on Adam West's career. Bruce Timm, inspired by Adam West's Batman as a child, but not so presumptuous as to cast himself as an analog to Batman, becomes the Mad Bomber, who's responsible in a way for bringing Adam West and Batman together to showcase Adam West's value. In a community where Batman 66 was being derided in publications such as Wizard magazine, Batman the Animated Series came to the rescue. The episode began to turn public perception and give Adam West the credit he's due for keeping the popularity of the character alive and for being a valuable, wonderful, bizarre part of Batman's history. Also, it's cool when he bat dances, you know? That's just good. I don't give a shit. I love it.